My son put a giant red bow on a white Mercedes and handed the keys to his mother-in-law in front of everyone on Thanksgiving. He gave me a frying pan. I set the pan on the table, took my sweater from the back of the chair, and walked out without a word. He didn't chase me. Tiffany, my daughter-in-law, kept filming for Instagram. Her mother, Marlene, squealed and kissed the hood like it was a baby. The bow flapped in the November wind. I drove home to Westerville with the radio off and blocked my son's number in the driveway. Quick pause, subscribe, hit like, and drop your city in the comments so I can say hi next time. If you're wondering what came before that bow, I'll tell you, but you need to know the woman who walked out. My name is Linda Carter. I'm 66, retired from the Columbus Public Library system, and I'm the kind of person who keeps her warranties in a biscuit tin and her measuring spoons hung on hooks. My husband, Jim, died 5 years ago. The mortgage was paid. The Cincy brick Cape Cod on Emerson Road is mine. The hydrangeas out front are mine. And the old cast iron skillet my mother gave me is mine. I sing alto at St. Matthew's on Sundays and play cards on Wednesdays with women who call themselves the Queens of Hearts and mean it. Evan is my only child. I raised him on casseroles and library late fee forgiveness. He married Tiffany 3 years ago. She is glossy. Her nails are always perfect. So is her phone. That phone has seen more of my life than Evan has because she posts everything and only the angles she likes. A week before Thanksgiving, I'd found 2 pieces of my mail tucked under the rug by the front door. A card from Buckeye Credit Union saying, "We're processing your address change," and a postcard from the county recorder about new documents affecting your property. My stomach went cold. I hadn't changed my address. I hadn't filed any documents. I called the credit union, and the young man at the branch, Caleb, his name tag says, but I know him from choir, said he'd flag the account and connect me to the fraud unit in the morning. I didn't say a word to Evan because I have learned that silence has more gravity than speech. I roasted the turkey for my choir potluck and let my phone go dark. But on Thanksgiving at Tiffany's sister's house in Gahanna, after the pecan pie, they marched us into the driveway for a surprise. Marlene cried when she saw the car, a white Mercedes GLE with winter tires and heated seats, bowed like a prom queen. Tiffany narrated into her phone, "We did it, Mom! You deserve the world!" Evan turned to me with a grin and said, "As for you, Mom, we know you love to cook." He handed me a frying pan with a paper bow taped to the handle, still in the discount store sleeve, $14.99. Everyone laughed too loud and then clapped when Marlene pressed the ignition button and the car purred to life. The insult was so clean, it sparkled. I don't like to make a scene. I simply left. The cold air went straight through my cardigan. I blocked Evan in the driveway because if I didn't, I'd call him and say something I couldn't get back. At home, I put the kettle on my real skillet to weigh it down while I taped the receipt tin shut like a crime scene. I took pictures of the postcard from the recorder and the credit union card. I opened my laptop, logged into the Franklin County Recorder's website, and searched my parcel number. Nothing new recorded. Yet. The next morning, Buckeye's fraud unit called at 8:10 a.m. A woman named Denise spoke low and careful. "Miss Carter, were you in our Easton branch last Thursday to notarize a durable power of attorney?" "No," I said. "I have never notarized anything there, and I have no power of attorney for anyone." She hummed like a tuning fork. "Someone presented a POA naming your son as attorney in fact. The notary flagged it because the ID address didn't match. We've frozen any changes and filed an internal report." She paused. "Do you feel safe?" "Yes," I said, though I suddenly did not. The walls of my little house felt too thin, and the hydrangeas outside were hushed, like they were listening through the glass. "What do I need to do?" Denise gave me a list. Place a fraud alert with the credit bureaus, send a written revocation of any purported POA, and come into the branch to sign an affidavit. She emailed me a copy of the attempted POA. When I opened the PDF, my own name jumped like a fish. Linda M. Carter grants Evan Carter authority to manage all real property, including 1241 Emerson Road. The signature was my name, written by a stranger who knows cursive. There was a notary stamp. The timestamp read 2:15 p.m. last Thursday. I looked at the calendar. Last Thursday at 2:15 p.m., I was in my quilting circle at the church basement, stitching blue borders on a baby quilt for a woman named Tessa who was due in January. There are 12 women who can place me in that room. I printed everything and slid it into a red folder. I put on my church coat and drove to Buckeye's Westerville branch, where Denise met me in a little glass office. She had me sign the affidavit and helped me place the alerts. Then she looked me in the eyes. "If you want to involve Adult Protective Services, we can help with that too." "I'm not a victim," I said reflexively. "She didn't say you were. She said they could help." I took her card and her calm voice home with me. That afternoon, I set up USPS informed delivery. I can see scans of my mail before it arrives and know if something goes missing. I bought a locking mailbox from Home Depot and asked my neighbor Walt to help install it. He's a retired postmaster with forearms that look like rolled quilts. While he worked, he said, "I saw someone at your box Wednesday night. Tall woman, dark coat, hair like a helmet. Didn't look like she lived here." "Marlene," I said without thinking. Walt raised an eyebrow and tightened the tamper-proof screws with a little extra oomph.
On Saturday, I watched Tiffany's Instagram stories because I don't believe in pretending the wolf isn't circling. She'd posted a notary day boomerang with a pen clicking, then a video from a baby shower at 2:12 p.m. at a brewery in Dublin, pink balloons. Then at 2:45, in the same outfit, a selfie saying, "Paperwork done." The notary stamp on my forged POA said 2:15 p.m. at the Easton branch, a 20-minute drive in traffic from the brewery. My quilting circle ended at 3. Time can be a witness when people think it's asleep. I sent screenshots to my email and printed them for my red folder. I wrote dates in the margin with a librarian's satisfaction. 2:12 p.m. Dublin baby shower, 2:15 p.m. Easton notary stamp, 3:05 p.m. quilting circle photo posted by Barb with me holding a spool of blue thread in the background. On Sunday, after choir, I went downtown to the Franklin County Recorder's office and asked a woman at the window named Rita how to get alerts for anything recorded on my parcel. She told me about their free recording notification service. I signed up. "People think fraud can't happen to them," she said while the printer hummed. "Then somebody's nephew records a deed, and Monday morning they don't own their house anymore." "I raised a son who knows better," I said, and felt my hand shake, just a little. "Stay till the end, and I'll show the truth." Monday morning, the first ding from that alert system hit my phone at 9:12 a.m. Document recorded affecting parcel 010XXX. I parked the groceries on the counter and opened it with a paper towel still in my hands. Affected by power of attorney. Recorded by a mobile notary service referencing my address. I printed it in my kitchen with the printer tray rattling like a squirrel. The affidavit repeated the lie that Evan was my agent and needed access to manage new financing. New financing means HELOC, home equity line of credit. That's how you buy a shiny white car and still smile like you're standing in church. I called the county recorder again and asked how to get a certified copy. "Come on in," Rita said. "Bring ID." On the way, I stopped by St. Matthew's just because I needed to stand somewhere with stained glass. Father Mark wasn't in, but the secretary poured me coffee and asked about my quilting. Sometimes the kindness of a person with a cardigan and a stapler is the only thing between you and despair. Certified copy in hand, I sat in my Subaru in the parking garage and stared at the blue ribbon on the document like it could tell me what to do next. Then I did what librarians do. I made a list. File police report for forgery, identity theft, non-emergency line, email APS intake for elder financial exploitation. I hate the word elder, but the law likes categories. File a complaint with the Ohio Secretary of State against the notary, request copy of notary journal, deliver revocation of POA to Evan, to Buckeye, to recorder, to attach to record. Freeze with title insurance. Call the title company that handles most HELOCs for my bank. Stop by the dealership in Gehanna to ask who paid for that Mercedes. I called the non-emergency number from the garage. The officer asked me to bring my folder to the substation. Bring any texts or voicemails too. The only recent text from Evan was a thumbs up to a picture of a pumpkin pie. Everything else went dark after the pan. At the substation, Officer Hightower took my statement and handled my folder with care. She said, "We'll open a case and send it to the detective. Do you have reason to believe this was your son?" I have reason to believe my son didn't stop it. I watched her write those words down. I meant them. The title insurance fraud desk answered on the first ring. "We got an inquiry Friday," she checked. "Attempted HELOC, $85,000 secured by 1241 Emerson. The caller was a woman using your name, but when we asked her to spell the street, she said Emerson with 2 M's. We declined. We notified your bank." I could have kissed her through the phone. I wrote 2 M's in the margin, because that is what I do. At the dealership, a young man with hair sculpted like a hedge recognized the Instagram of the driveway beau. "We don't give out customer information," he said, chewing gum that smelled like a field trip. I showed him the police card. He walked into an office and returned with a manager with a tie as tight as a lid. "The vehicle is leased under Tiffany's name, with Evan as co-signer. Down payment was a cashier's check, not from your account." "Thank you." I walked out with a smile that felt like a held plank. If they didn't use my money for the down payment, the bow wasn't finished. They still needed the HELOC for taxes and furniture and status. Fraud grows in patches. On Wednesday, the notary's journal arrived by email from the Secretary of State's office with a note, "Investigation opened." The journal had neat columns: date, time, type of ID, signer. The entry for my name listed credible witness Marlene Fisher, ID Ohio DL, signer Linda Carter, no ID, known to witness. Time recorded 2:15 p.m. at Easton. Signature, not mine, not even close. I printed that and slid it behind the red plastic as if to press it into truth. Then I called APS. The caseworker, a woman named Tanya, with a voice like a low church bell, said, "We'll come out and talk with you, Miss Carter. Do you want a home visit?" I want someone to listen before they take my house. And if I'm wrong, I want to know that too.
Tanya came Friday morning. She wore sensible shoes and took notes with a purple pen. She looked at my kitchen, my pill organizer, vitamin D, fish oil, the little blood pressure pill the cardiologist swears by, my quilting frame. "You're managing well," she said, "but exploitation can happen to anyone." She took copies of the forged papers, the Instagram timestamps, the notary journal, and the letter I'd drafted revoking any purported POA. She asked if I'd consider a safety plan. I told her my plan was to change the locks and bake a ham for Sunday, because I needed at least one normal thing. That night, at 9:23 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. You're overreacting. The car was a blessing. E." My hands started to shake, then stopped. I put my phone on the charger and slept with the red folder on the nightstand. Saturday morning, Tiffany posted a story of mimosas with the caption, "Hard week, treat yourself." Marlene posed by the car outside a salon in New Albany, with the bow still on the antenna like a crown. A friend of mine from church, Arlene, sent me a screenshot with the text, "Is this the woman from the driveway?" Yes, some people paint their motives on their faces and call it contouring. I unblocked Evan long enough to text, "Return my house key. Sunday, 2 p.m., porch." He replied, "Will come by." We, not he. I set my phone to record video and tucked it in the napkin drawer facing the door glass. Ohio is a one-party consent state. The librarian in me knows these things because I have taught digital privacy classes in the branch when no one else would. I brewed coffee and waited. At 2:04 p.m., Evan's truck pulled to the curb. Tiffany followed in the Mercedes, bow bobbing. Marlene got out of the passenger seat in a coat the color of new money. They walked up the path like a committee. "Mom," Evan said, stopping a bit short of the mat,
"Can we come in?" "No," I said. I held out a ceramic dish patterned with apples. "Put the key in here." Marlene smiled like she'd practiced in a mirror. "Linda, there's been a misunderstanding. We were just trying to organize things. It's so much paperwork when you're, at this stage." "This stage?" I said. "I sing second alto and drive at night. Which stage is that?" Tiffany's voice cut in. "We have the paperwork done, Linda. If you'd stop being stubborn and sign what the bank needs, we can get repairs done on this place and maybe find you somewhere safer. There's a lovely assisted living near where we live. Evan worries about you." Evan looked at his shoes. He used to be my boy. He used to bring me dandelions. I studied his face, the soft bracket lines that weren't there last year, and I decided I was done fighting for an idea of a son that didn't exist anymore. "Leave the key," I said, "and do not come back without an invitation. Any authority you think you have is revoked." I lifted a paper from the other ceramic dish, this one blue, revocation of power of attorney. I held it up so the camera in the napkin drawer could see. "Certified mail goes out Monday." "You can't do this," Tiffany said. "We already told the HLOC people you agreed." "Then you'd better tell them a new story," I said, calm as if I were checking out a stack of novels. "Because the bank, the recorder, APS, the police, the notary board, and my church ladies all know the truth, and we save everything." Evan put his key in the apple dish. For a moment, his fingers touched the rim the way they used to touch the edge of his cereal bowl when he was 5. Then he let go. They turned toward the steps. Marlene looked back. "You can't stop progress," she said, as if moving me out counted as progress. "Watch me," I said. They left in a shuffle of indignation, the Mercedes humming. When the glass was quiet again, I took my phone from the napkin drawer and saved the video to 3 places: phone, laptop, USB. The red folder sat on the table like a living thing. I placed the apple dish on top of it, like a lid. Sunday evening, Officer Hightower called to say the detective wanted to talk. She said, "Bring that video." On Monday morning, I clipped the red folder under my arm and went to the substation. Detective Morales was my age, with hair the same stubborn gray as mine. She watched my porch video twice. She asked if I'd be willing to wear a recorder if they set up a meeting with a title company about the paperwork. She said, "We can't entrap them, but we can observe." I said yes. If they wanted me to be the librarian in the sting, I would sign up for extra hours. That afternoon, the alert from the recorder pinged again. Release of affidavit. Then another ping, 2 minutes later. Notice of intent to record transfer on death designation affidavit. I printed both. The first meant they were trying to pull back what they had filed because someone told them it was hot. The second meant they were planning to record a TOD naming someone to get my house when I die. I am very much alive. I called Rita at the recorder. "Can someone add a note to the file that any documents attempting to add beneficiaries need in-person verification with ID?" Rita said they could flag it and attach my revocation and my police case number. I thanked her like she'd brought soup.
That night, I baked muffins and set out my blue scarf and my driver's license, and for the first time since the bow, I slept through. Thursday morning was bright and mean. I wore the blue scarf and the pearl studs Jim gave me on our 20th anniversary. The title company's office in Worthington smelled like coffee and paper, my native habitat. Detective Morales and Officer Hightower waited in an unmarked car. I walked in alone, like a patron with a complicated interlibrary loan. The closing room had a fake ficus and a view of a parking lot with exactly 3 cars: my Subaru, Evan's truck, and the Mercedes. Tiffany walked in with a tote bag that said, "Boss Lady." Marlene followed, eyes scanning for weak spots. Evan came last, tugging his jacket sleeves like the boy who used to hate church clothes.
The closer, a woman named Beth, who looked like she'd make a perfect librarian, smiled at us all. "We'll need to see IDs," she said, gentle but firm. I handed mine over. Tiffany slid a stack of papers to Beth. "Here's the POA," she said. "We're using the HELOC to help Linda with repairs before she moves. We'll add the TOD today." Beth glanced at the pages, then at me. "Miss Carter, do you consent to this transaction?" "No," I said. "I am here to say I do not consent." There was a rustle in the ficus. The door opened. Detective Morales stepped in with Officer Hightower. "Good morning," Morales said. "We're observing a potential fraud. Please set the papers aside." Tiffany's smile cracked. Marlene crossed her arms. Evan swallowed. The room smelled like coffee and lies. "Ma'am," Morales said to Tiffany, "you presented this POA to the bank last week." She held up the copy with the timestamp. Tiffany's jaw set. "We were just trying to help. Linda can't keep living alone." Hightower placed the notary journal on the table. "You used your mother as a credible witness to say you knew Linda personally and she was present." She tapped the time. "You were at a baby shower in Dublin at 2:12 p.m. The notary recorded 2:15 p.m. at Easton. That's 20 minutes apart. Did you teleport?" Marlene opened her mouth and closed it. Evan said, "Tiff, just—" "Sir," Morales said evenly, "I need your ID." Evan handed it over with hands that trembled. "We have your porch recording, Miss Carter," Morales said, turning to me. "We also have the attempted HELOC record and the recordings from the dealer parking lot when the Mercedes rolled off the lot. We have enough to open charges for attempted identity theft and presenting a false instrument for recording." Tiffany's eyes flashed wet and mean. "You can't arrest me for trying to help family." "We can," Hightower said, "and if we don't, the Attorney General will take an interest." She slid a card across the table like a librarian sliding due date slips. "Here's your case number." Marlene stood so fast the ficus trembled. "This is ridiculous. She can't even keep track of her mail." "I can see it before it arrives," I said because I needed to say something trivial to keep the room from spinning. "USPS informed delivery." The closer, Beth, gathered the papers. She said, "No transaction will be happening today. Miss Carter, we will attach your revocation and police report to the parcel record." Evan put his face in his hands. I watched his shoulders move. I wanted to rub his back, and I wanted to leave the room, and both desires felt like a betrayal of the other. In the end, I stood still and let the law be the hand I could not. The next days moved like a parade in slow motion. The notary's commission was suspended pending investigation. APS filed their report. The county recorder flagged my parcel so bright you could see it from the moon. I replaced my deadbolt with a Schlage with a code only I know, and Walt installed a camera that texts me when a squirrel runs by. Keep watching. There will be justice. The dealership called Detective Morales to ask if they should be concerned. She told them to cooperate. A week later, their manager emailed me a copy of the lease payment schedule. The numbers told a cartoon. Fancy car, small income, big pride. The down payment had come from Tiffany's business account, a lash studio that posts more than it bills. The second payment had already been late. I heard through the church grapevine that Marlene complained at her salon that I was cruel. "She won't even let us fix her peeling paint," she said to the woman who does Arlene's niece's hair. You don't need to eavesdrop when the town is small and people think shampoo chairs are confessionals. A letter arrived from the Ohio AG's Consumer Protection Section, thanking me for my documentation and asking for patience. The fraud unit at Buckeye sent confirmation of the permanent revocation of any purported POA and added notes so thick to my account you could plant tomatoes in them. Rita at the recorder emailed me the official attachment to my parcel. Revocation of POA, C, case number 2024 FCR 187. I took a breath. I started to cook again because I had avoided the kitchen since the pan. I whisked eggs in the bowl Jim bought at the craft fair in Yellow Springs the year Evan graduated high school. I fried them in my mother's cast iron skillet, the one with the smooth black bottom so seasoned it shines. I flipped them and thought, I will be okay. Then the HOA tried to join the parade. A week after the title company incident, I got a letter from Stony Brook Reserve HOA citing me for an unapproved mailbox and a setback violation for my Quilt Square garden sign. The fine? $175, due in 10 days. If unpaid, they could place a lien. I took the letter to the board meeting held in a room at the rec center with bad fluorescent lights. The board president, a man named Craig who calls pickleball a sport, raised his hand like a crossing guard when I started to speak. "You can't have that sign," he said. "Rules are rules." "That sign has been there since 2011, I said. "You approved it. I have the minutes." I pulled them out of a folder the color of rubber bands. He blinked. He didn't expect me to have the minutes. I also had the 2011 approval letter in plastic sleeve. "We got a complaint," he said. "From whom?" I asked. He looked down. "We don't disclose." "You do," I said, tapping the bylaw. "Section 4.3 requires disclosure of the complaining party for enforcement actions." He read it, lips moving. "Fine," he said. "The complaint came from 22 Emerson." Marlene's address. I didn't need to look. She'd moved into a patio home around the corner 3 months earlier, when the apartment by the highway got noisy. She'd been upscaling, Tiffany said on Instagram. I set the approval letter on the table. "Rescind the fines," I said, "and add a note that any future complaints from that address related to my property will require board inspection before any notice is sent. Your own rules require notice before fines, and you skipped that step." They rescinded. They folded like napkins. I stopped at Grater's on the way home and bought a mint chocolate chip cone with cash from my recipe card tin, because joy is also a document. 2 weeks later, Detective Morales called with a date. A grand jury would hear charges for attempted identity theft, a felony, and offering a false instrument for filing, a felony. "I can't promise results," she said, "but the notary board has already moved to revoke that commission. The Secretary of State is taking it seriously. Your screenshots helped." I thanked her and baked banana bread, because in my world, justice goes with baking like hymns go with Sundays. Evan texted from a number I didn't recognize. "Can I come by alone? I just want to talk." I asked Detective Morales if that was wise. She said, "If you do, have someone here and keep the door open." So I asked my neighbor Walt to sit at my table with a crossword. Evan arrived with his shoulders up around his ears, eyes rimmed red. He looked at Walt, then at me. "I messed up," he said. I poured coffee into a mug that said, "World's Okayest Mom," a gag gift from Arlene that had made me laugh so hard I snorted. "Sit," I said. He sat. He said, "I thought we were helping." He stared at his hands. "Tiffany said the HE lock would be for repairs, and then we could sell the house when you were ready. She said her mom could sell her place and we could all move closer to New Albany. It sounded smart." "And the POA?" I said. He flushed. "I didn't know it was fake," he said. "Tiffany said you'd signed with the notary at the bank. I swear I didn't think you'd be hurt. I thought we were streamlining. You watched me leave with a pan, and you let me go." He rubbed his face. "I don't know who I am around her sometimes. I get small." I wanted to tell him he wasn't small, but the truth was he had shrunk to fit someone else's picture frame. Walt coughed and pretended to check a clue for 3-letter word meaning regret. I asked him if he had a lawyer. He shook his head. "Tiffany says we don't need one." "You might," I said. He nodded, stood, and put something on the table, a small envelope with my name in his high school block letters. Inside was a short note. "I'm sorry, Mom. Love, E." And my house key, the copy he hadn't admitted he still had. After he left, I cried for a good 10 minutes, the ugly kind that hiccups. Then I made tea. I washed the frying pan I'd left in the sink, because everyday things don't stop when your heart breaks, they wait. Don't click away, he'll get what's coming. The grand jury returned indictments on Tiffany and Marlene. The charges were official words, heavy and cold. The notary's commission was revoked. The bank sent me a letter saying the attempted HELOC had been flagged as fraudulent, and any future loan on my property would require in-person verification with 2 IDs and a thumbprint that could probably unlock Fort Knox. The HOA sent me an apology letter signed by Craig with a pen that left blotches. "We regret any distress caused and have updated our procedures." I took a photo of the letter and sent it to Arlene with the caption, "Framed and hung by the quilt sign." Then the dealership posted a notice on their page, "Vehicle repossessed for non-payment." No names, but we all knew. The bow didn't purr anymore. It sat in a plastic bag in Marlene's garage, according to a neighbor who likes to water his lawn with gossip. APS closed my case with a note. Protective measures implemented, client safe, ongoing monitoring as needed. The detective called to say Tiffany's arraignment would be next Tuesday at 9 a.m. She said, "You don't have to go."
I said I know. Then I went anyway. Sat in the back in my blue scarf. When Tiffany saw me, her lips tightened. Marlene looked everywhere but at me. Evan stared at the floor. The judge entered and the room stood. The words were dry. Charges, counsel, bail. The defense attorney said Tiffany was a devoted daughter and wife who had overstepped in an effort to help. The prosecutor said words about documents and timestamps and intent. The judge set conditions and dates. It wasn't TV. It was just the slow hinge of the door of accountability opening.
Outside, the January air cut clean as a new hymn. Evan walked over. He was crying, but quiet. "I'm going to counseling," he said. "I'm staying with a friend." "I'm glad," I said. "I love you." "I know," he said. "I don't deserve it." "None of us do," I said, which is something Father Mark says, and he's smarter than both of us. Spring came with the crabapple tree out front throwing a party for itself. I moved back into my choir pew after a month of sitting in the back like a storm cloud. I took a day trip with the Queens of Hearts to a quilt show in Amish country and pretended to be very serious about batting while we ate whoopie pies and giggled like teenagers. My mailbox has a lock. My bank account has more passwords than the Library of Congress, and my house has plaques in the file at the recorder that might as well say, "Do not attempt." The frying pan sits on top of my fridge. Sometimes I take it down and look at the price sticker and think about how cheap some people's love can be when it has to be measured. Then I put it away and cook with the good skillet, because life is too short to eat eggs in a pan that lies to you. The case didn't move fast. None of them do. Tiffany entered a plea to a lesser charge, agreed to restitution to pay the title company's costs, and completed a financial responsibility course. Marlene pled to a misdemeanor for the notary mess and did community service at the library. Evan took a diversion program, paid court costs, and completed counseling. Their marriage nodded and then frayed. I didn't watch closely, because watching someone else undo is not my work. What is my work is this. I changed my estate plan with an independent fiduciary who doesn't sing in my choir or braid my hair. I added a trusted friend as a backup on my healthcare directives. Not my son, not because I don't love him, but because I do. And I won't put him in a fire again. I joined a fraud prevention committee at St. Matthew's and taught a workshop called Receipts Are Love Letters to Your Future Self. Denise from Buckeye came and smiled from the back row. Tanya from APS sent a flyer. Rita from the recorder mailed me a stack of brochures. We handed out checklists and pens. I held up my red folder and my blue scarf like a secular rosary. One Sunday after choir, a woman in her 70s with pearls tight as a promise pressed my hand and said, "My grandson keeps asking me to sign things. I thought it was just how life is. Maybe it isn't." "It isn't," I said. "It's your life. Read everything. Ask someone who doesn't profit from your confusion to sit with you. Don't be afraid to be called difficult. Difficult women keep their homes." That afternoon, I sat on my porch with a glass of iced tea and watched the pink light hit the hydrangeas. Evan walked up the path alone, hands in his pockets, looking like the boy who used to ask why the sky was blue. He sat on the step, not the chair, because he remembered the rule about not being invited in until he was invited, and that respect felt better than flowers. He said, "I got a job at the warehouse. It's honest work. I'm saving for a used Corolla." "Good," I said. "I can teach you how to check the oil." We sat quiet as the street lights blinked on. Somewhere, a neighbor's grill clicked. Somewhere, a card game started. My house breathed around me, solid as a hymn, and I felt something like peace take a seat beside me and put its hand on my knee like an old friend.
If you're a woman like me, with a recipe card file and a receipt tin and a pill organizer with your week in it, hear me. Your name on your house is not a suggestion. Your signatures are not costumes for other people to wear. Save your voicemails, date your copies, ask for certified mail receipts, and keep them behind red plastic where you can see them and where anyone who tries you can see them too. The frying pan is a story I tell sometimes, but it is not the end of mine. I use the good skillet, I sing my alto, I buy my own flowers, and when my son comes by with respect in his pockets, I make 2 mugs of tea and put honey on the table because forgiveness doesn't need a bow to be real. It needs boundaries and time and a woman who walked out once and will again if she has to. This was my experience shared for awareness and entertainment. Stay safe, stay stubborn, and make sure your name is where it belongs, every single place it belongs.
So, another story of my grandmother has sent, and be clicking here, you will have when more such stories.